Hmm. Yeah, I thought it was a game that had pretty much everything in it. Um, you know, passion, energy, and commitment from both teams. I thought we started the game very positively, very aggressively again. Not dissimilar in the fact that maybe the performance that we saw last weekend against LAFC, and of course got ourselves in front just before the break. Um, I thought our set pieces were better than we've seen in a good while, and of course we were able to take advantage of that just before the break. But just as importantly, with actually a few problems in the group, I thought we started the second half on the front foot again, and to squeeze that second goal out of a very, very tight game was vitally important. Um, all in all, a fantastic performance, a terrific win, and against what we all know is a very talented and confident team.
At least what looked like a couple different formational switches throughout the game. Fafa and Hani seemed like they switched positions a couple of times, and then towards the end you saw Hani up front kind of essentially by himself. Can you maybe explain those a little bit?
Yeah.
Kind of
Yeah, there've been a couple of little shifts and tweaks to the group that we've looked at to try and be a little bit more aggressive from the opening exchanges. They've worked. What it means is beyond that we have the ability with someone like Fafa on the field to maybe drop him slightly deeper into those wider areas. But I think what the group have done very, very well is adapt to any of those shifts and changes. And it doesn't affect enormously what we're after in terms of our possession and build out. And for the most part, the likes of Dax, Annabelle and Alex really were under orders to put themselves in difficult positions that were tough for the likes of Sosa and their midfield to get pressure on. And I thought there were some really good passages of play in that first period, especially towards the last 20 minutes when the game lost that energy that you see early on. We had a problem with Till at half-time. His groin tightened up. He's gone out there and given us a good 15 minutes to get the game underway so that we don't have to make too many changes at the break. You saw Fafa go and join Hani for that period, and Jacob come on, which is a fairly natural move. And then he has a problem. And we finished up with a back five with what really was two wide attacking players to come and join Hani from a slightly different angle. But I did say, maybe at this point in the year, especially having lost CJ, that there might need to be some more creativity with how we look at that front line. And the lovely thing about today is Jacob scored, Fafa scored, and Teal's got off the mark as well. So absolutely delighted for those three, of course. You may well be right. I mean, there'll be a couple of guys that might question that, but I think at that point in the game, and it was always in the back of my mind that there might well be a change around that 30 minute mark to try and just give everyone a bit of a shot in the arm, and his energy and his pace and his direct nature. It's not just about how quick he can run. It's just that he's very positive. He's very infectious with the way that he plays. And whilst we've got players on the field that are good in between the lines, he's far more vertical with his work. He wants to get in behind the back four. And I think at that point in the game, it's a real problem for defenders that are obviously fatiguing. They're trying to chase the game as well. And, somebody like Jacob, obviously Fafa comes into that bracket as well. Those guys have got game-changing pace. And to see one of those individuals come into the mix at that point gives everyone a lift and, of course, gives the opposing side a bit of a concern.
How was the team after the opposition scored how was the team able to really keep that energy up?
Well, I think my first response to that has got to be, was the penalty, clear and concise? Was it an obvious error that the referee had made? His initial call was not a penalty. There was obviously somebody in his ear saying, you might need to look at this again. And without having seen it in a replay or in slow motion, which the referee obviously has had the ability to do, my only question, as I said to him afterwards, did you make an obvious error? And to that he said, yes, I felt I had. Now, I'll get the chance to look at it, as we all will, and you may well have seen it already. But that could have been a pivotal moment for us. At 2-0, they get themselves back in the game. They're more than capable, as we well know, of mounting serious pressure. And it shifted the dynamic of the game for a good while. And to be perfectly honest, I thought they had a very good 20, 25-minute window. In the middle of the game, they scored in that time. And we were on the rack. There's no doubt about it. We expected there to be periods in the game where we may have a problem. And I thought the guys weathered that incredibly well. And then, of course, the goal into that prolonged injury time period was really probably enough to knock the stuffing out of them and any momentum that they'd had. But it was an important time, and the guys showed an awful lot of character after a penalty call that I'm sure a lot of them have felt was maybe a tad unjust.
Recording stopped.
Gary, you already told us a few times that you liked a lot the first half of the NSH game, and you thought it was the best first half the team has played as well. Is it today the second best half the team has played, and I guess perhaps such a difficult and highest ranked rival? Is that what you maybe had seen today? The more complete game in the season for the team?
I think your comment there about being the most complete game is definitely apt. I didn't see a huge amount of differences in that first period. If you try and compartmentalise it, we started very competitively on the front foot, disrupted a team that are highly talented with the ball, and I think have shown some tremendous qualities against other teams in the same circumstances. I thought we did a very good job of putting ourselves in a very positive spot. Chances weren't really clear-cut at that point, not an awful lot for either side. And in fact, a little bit like maybe a big fight. It was almost like the two teams just blew themselves out in the first 20 minutes, and then it almost, came down to a more natural level. They looked bright on the attack. We looked aggressive on the attack without either team, making too much of an impact. But I think the big difference, of course, the set-piece goal was terrific. I thought we did a much better job in the second half of not only, finding a route through to that second goal, but also managing moments in the game when we were under pressure, when life looked like it was getting away from us a little bit. If you think about the same circumstances last week, we had a centre-back that came out of the game within 10 minutes, and we've had a centre-forward come out of the game. And therein lies a big difference probably as to how we dealt with that period of the game where they got on top. Walker stood his ground, held up the Colosseum a little bit like Hercules, and that strength in the middle of the back line is a huge support for a lot of others around. The added energy and the bodies that came into the game, I honestly thought all of the guys, and it was a real team effort today, all of the guys that came onto the field, in one way, shape or form, helped in the process of earning the points. For the likes of Jacob, it's an easy one to look at. He scores, very positive. But I thought Brian Anunga and Jan and Luke Taylor, they did a really sterling team job of shutting down players and just, sticking a plug in some of the quality that Atlanta had.
Coach, what did you make of Walker's performance coming off being last week's game where we won practice and then today getting that flipped on ever?
Look, he's an international centre-back. He's a top defender in this league. If not one of the best, You know, he's not just a very, very good player and a terrific defender. It's also a huge confidence boost to have him in the group for the rest of the guys. You know, everyone's got their job in the team, and to lose an individual like that, as we did last week, was probably a little bit of a shock to the system for the guys that were out there, because he rarely comes off the field. You know he's got a problem when he does, and I've got to give him a load of credit and the medical staff for turning him around for this weekend. It's been a tricky week. He's had to, you know, get a lot of extra treatment and work in to put himself in a position where he can play to the sort of level that he has today. So, you know, huge credit to, you know, the staff and the player to be in that spot.
Maybe we have one follow-up here, and then we're going to leave you soon.
Yeah, this is the second game that we haven't seen Sean after he started the first 8, I believe. You have an update on him?
Yeah, he had a slight hamstring problem. Again, Sean's, you know, one of those guys that seems to, you know, be like the Duracell bunny. He's just constantly training, playing, you know, working. But I think more than anything, we've had to, you know, just put the reins on him a little bit. He's not far away. He's made some good progress. I had a chat with the medical staff before the game, and I think if he has a good week, he may well be in a position to be part of the group for the Chicago game next weekend, as long as things go according to plan. No backward steps. We should be in a pretty decent place.
Let's go to the Zoom. Team Sullivan.
Gary, you mentioned Teal came off with a minor injury, but how important is it, especially now that you guys no longer have CJ, to have him get on the scoreboard, get especially the kind of goal that he got, a striker's goal, kind of the rebounding, right place, right time after Heine's long shot?
We've been waiting for this moment for a little while, Tim. You know, the two guys that we had up front, not for a lack of effort, were unfortunate to stay this long, 10 games into the season, 9 games last week without a goal. So it's as encouraging to see Teal get on the sheet as it is anything else today. It will be a confidence boost for him. It will be a huge lift, not only for him but for the team. I thought his performance was very decent up until, you know, he had a problem at the break, and then still he's been able to get out there and be a good target man for us in those early exchanges. In the end, I've taken him off out of caution. You know, he said it was tight, but he could have carried on. But for all the reasons you've said, we're down to, you know, what we would class as one senior target forward. And I felt it was the right time to maybe get him out and to make sure that he's okay as we move forward. But all in all, lovely to see 3 separate goal scorers, for it not obviously to be Hani, although he's involved in those heavily. And of course, very encouraging to score 3 goals against a side that have started the season so well.
Team, do you have any follow-up?
Yeah, on Jacob's goal at the end there, obviously this is not a guy that anybody is surprised to see how fast he is, but given the way he just pulled away from the back line there, what does it say about, I guess, your team's ability to play on the counter, but also Jacob's singular athletic ability and finishing ability on that one?
Yeah, we've seen it a numerous amount of times already, haven't we, from Jacob? And I think everyone would agree that, you know, Fafa's in that same category in terms of explosive pace. And timing, of course, is important. The ball from Hani was terrifically weighted, but Jacob's still got a tremendous amount to do. I want to say I know what it's like to try and deal with a ball at that pace, but I don't. You know, he's moving at such breakneck speed that he's still got an awful lot to do. He's got to gather himself, he's got to compose himself, he's got to feel the pressure coming from behind him, he sees the goalkeeper coming out, and he's still got to produce a finish, obviously to score, but to ask the goalkeeper at very worst a question. And that's not easy, especially on his weaker foot. So a wonderful goal and very, very timely.